Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the ICAST. My name is Michael Dowies, and man, it seems like we've never really done a podcast, but we have. This podcast is back. I think there was one or two episodes a long time ago. It's been quite some time since we've done this, but we're back. We're here to stay. And so we've got a wonderful new team of folks with us. And we'll get into our backgrounds in just a minute, but I want to introduce everybody first, and then we'll go over some ground rules here. But to start us off, we have Marty Sobo here with us. Hi, Marty. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me. And hey, everyone, how's it going? And I'm glad to be here.
All right. And for our next host, we have Alicia Geary. Hi, Alicia. Welcome to the ICAST.
Hello.
You know, I really am going to have to, as we do this show, make sure not to say IACast, since that's our other show. So that may happen a few times. So
shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug. So
Go
check out the
IACast.
Yeah, go check out the IACast.
Mm-hmm. And that's how the iCast was formed. Is we have the iCast for Apple stuff and the Acast for Google stuff, and that may be coming back too. Who knows? So.
Wink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nudge, nudge.
Right. So plenty of content coming out. And if you want to chat with us during the live streams, we are on IACast Radio. If you are a listener of the radio station, you could go to iacast.net/listen or the iAccessibility for iOS app and get to listen to all of our content there. We are...
Do not disturb. Sorry.
What's that?
I forgot to put on Do Not Disturb. Sorry.
Yeah, it happens. Our devices always make an entrance into these things, so that's totally fine.
There we go.
So, as long as it's not an Android phone during this show,
Oops.
I can't have that.
Oops. I think I've already broken that rule.
I have to edit it out.
This is the no Android zone.
Well, no Android zone. Yeah.
How dare I?
I know, but it's actually that's one of the reasons why we felt like Alicia would be a great addition to this show, is because of her background. So, Alicia, we want to go ahead and go through all of us as hosts and why we're here on this show. And so, Alicia, why don't you talk about your experience with using technology and where you're going with technology, because I think you're making quite the change, aren't you?
Right. So I have been using Android since 2011. I know, I'm on the iCast. I started using Android in about 2011, around the ice cream sandwich era. If you speak Android language, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But here recently, I picked up an iPad as a lightweight work device because sometimes if I'm out and about, my laptop is obviously meant to be portable. That's what laptops were designed to do. However, sometimes if I'm carrying other things, it can be a bit heavy. So I picked up an iPad as a more lightweight work device that was smaller and easier to carry around. Well, when I got to playing around with it, I realized that a lot of the features that I used on Amazon, a lot of the features that I used on Android were on iOS now, and iOS happens to do them better. So, really soon, don't know when, but really soon, I will be switching from a Galaxy S23 Ultra that I have only had for like 6 months to a iPhone 15 Pro Max. And I think that is a crazy first iPhone. What do you think?
I agree with you. It's like all the way from one extreme to the other.
Right.
You go from one extreme all the way. You might as well it's like, shopping for a car. You're just like, I'll take the most expensive one on the lot with every bell and whistle that it has. I don't even need to test drive it.
I have the most expensive Samsung phone, and now I'm going to the most expensive iPhone.
Well, and technically she is test driving it because she has an iPad,
Yeah, technically.
Yeah, so it's kind of a test drive.
I've been testing. Oh my God. Technically, I have been test driving it for 3 weeks
Mm-hmm.
now,
And
almost.
I will say, working with Alicia in the background, I do know that at least for the past couple of weeks, she's been exclusively using the iPad for all of her work,
Yes.
which is actually pretty impressive because she does have a good computer, but she's just comfortable on the iPad and it does everything she needs it to do. And I think that's cool.
I have a Microsoft
Mm-hmm.
Surface Pro 7, and I have the i7 configuration.
Yeah, that's
Let
a
me
pretty
tell
nice
you,
machine.
the M1 in my iPad whoops my i7's butt. I have found myself using nothing but the iPad. I have not pulled out my Surface. My Surface is down here on my keyboard tray collecting dust. I have not touched my Surface in. I have not used my Surface for a longer period of
Mm-hmm.
time in like 3 weeks.
So, and we're gonna have a whole productivity episode about what apps make people be more productive on iPad in a later iCast. So, stay tuned for that. I think that'll be a great episode, great conversation.
Right.
So, Marty, what got you into the Apple world, and kind of talk about your history with Apple?
Well, I kind of go way back when I was a kid. My dad was into technology. And so I've kind of had computers around for, most of my life. But I remember we had really good family friends and we went over to their place, and my friend, their son, who was around my age, he had a brand new Macintosh. It was a first generation Macintosh. And so we ended up getting one of those because it was so cool. And then from there, we had Apple in the house, until probably the early-ish 90s, because mid-ish 90s, early 90s, something like that, because Apple kind of took a dip for a while and they weren't doing a whole lot. But then in the late 90s, the new iMacs came out when Steve Jobs came back. And once I got myself one of those new iMacs, I never looked back, and I've been using Apple products, Apple computers, Apple devices since then, and haven't looked back at all. And it comes from work I used to do in the music industry, doing management stuff and promotion. I did video and photography, all of that stuff. So I just never looked back from then, and I'm still doing it, and it's great. I love it. So I'm got all the cool things.
Yeah. So, you have a big history with Apple, and I won't give out your email, but this will date Marty. He has a mac.com email address.
Yes, I do, which is crazy. At that time, they were saying you'll have a free email address forever, right? So,
And they haven't lied.
no, I still have it.
Mm-hmm.
It's my main personal email.
I mean, I could technically email my mac.com address. I have one of those too. I started with one of those, but I'll get into that in just a minute. But those were the days. Those were the days.
Yep, it was great.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I was so into Windows. I know, surprising, right? But I was a Windows gamer and I used Windows for school. And I never really thought of Apple or anything like that being an option for me at all. And then Apple came out with this little, unpopular thing called the iPod. Just nobody's ever heard of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I live under a rock.
Right.
No one's ever heard of the iPod.
Right.
I've never heard of the iPod. Ooh, what is this beautiful thing called an iPod?
Yeah.
Please tell me, educate me. Just kidding.
Yeah. So I got an iPod and I'm like, oh, this is great. So let me go and find out about the Mac, because I like to be in the know. I like to understand what I don't understand. Right. So I went to an Apple store in 2005 here in Austin. And now we have 2 Apple stores. But I went to the Apple store and I said, okay, I've never owned a Mac. Why should I? Impress me. And, I was like 20 years old and, I thought this guy's not going to be able to do that. Nothing can beat Windows. Nothing. I can game, I can program, I can do all the stuff I need to do in Windows. And the employee said, okay, come with me. And we walked back to the iMacs and he said, okay, this is an iMac and this is what it can do, macOS, all the usual stuff. I think it was like macOS Tiger back in the day.
Yeah, it was Tiger. Tiger was like the first major operating system update to what they used to call OS 10. They would give it, a tiger, a cat name of some sort. And there was Jaguar and a few before that. But for Tiger, that was a huge update at the time. And they made a real big deal out of it.
And then, so he brought me over to one and said, okay, here's the things you could do with it. But the important thing for you is we have this feature called Zoom. And he turned on that feature doing what Zoom text could do at the time, a lot smoother, more natural. It was just great. And I said, okay, I'm sold. And he said, but wait, I'm not done. He said, we also have this feature called VoiceOver. And he knew how to use VoiceOver. He knew how to turn it on. He showed me how to use different keystrokes. And for a store employee to know how to do those things, I just couldn't believe it. And I basically said, what's your cheapest Mac? And I walked out of the store with one that day. So
that put the icing on the cake.
That did. And I never have looked back. Because, we talk about in podcasts and things, tech companies doing crazy things, being corporate America and all this stuff. And does Apple have their faults? Yes. But I'll tell you what. They believe in helping their customers. That's one of the things that I really believe about Apple. You could say they're in it for the dollars, but the way they get the dollars is by helping their customers.
Yeah, they want people to buy their products. So if they give good customer service, then people will keep coming back.
Now, do I think that that most of the employees these days know what the employees knew back then? No. There's too many products for them to know this stuff now. And I think that might have been, Steve Jobs always said you only have a certain number of products, or SKUs as the term goes.
Right.
And I think that's why, so that the people selling the product know how to sell the product. And people these days don't know how to sell the product because there's too many, right? And I think that's part of the problem that they have at the stores. But that's beside the point. We wanted to put together a podcast where we have several levels of expertise in the Apple ecosystem. I develop on it. Marty uses it for, he's used it for production and different things and getting work done, podcasting, everything. Alicia is switching to Apple. So we have a very wide range of users here. We kind of have the full gambit here of people who use Apple platforms. And so we wanted to put together a podcast where we could just come together and talk about Apple things and talk about what our thoughts are and things like that. And I think we have a good episode lined up for you here today. But before we really get into our topic, since we're starting this podcast off, Marty, do you have any expectations or things that you want to see come down the road in the podcast as we go forward?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it would be great to keep people aware of, what's coming on the horizon, what's out there. If there's something that needs some explanation, we could do that, and then talk about kind of all the things, around it, software, apps we use, workflows. I mean, maybe we'll have guests on for a specific topic. I mean, I hope that we can, really just kind of push the limits and just make it a really great all things Apple. So, computer, iPhone, iPads, all the things. So that's what I'm hoping for. And I think we'll be able to do it.
I agree. And Alicia, do you
Me
have
too.
any expectations or things that you want to see through the podcast?
I think Marty kind of summed it up.
And we should definitely let people know if they've got questions or if they want something to be talked about. And, they should definitely get a hold of us, and, we'll see what we can do about getting topics in the show, answering questions or whatever the case is.
And for now, you can email feedback@iacast.net and we'll get your questions. We will probably
use the hashtag ICAST on Mastodon and Facebook.
Yep.
There you go. Plenty of ways to get a hold of us.
For sure. So we always love discussion. We always want to hear from you. So let us know your thoughts, and we want to really make this an interactive podcast. So, and the cool thing is we have people listening on the radio, so that's fantastic. And just more people we can get engaging in this will be great. So, very exciting. So, we do have a topic for today. And are you guys ready for that? I think we're ready to kind of talk about, we're ready to upgrade to our topic of the day.
Yep, let's do it.
Before that, if you are enjoying this content so far, don't forget to share with any friends that might be interested.
So, you have an iPhone or you have an Android phone, and you are saying, that 15 Plus, 15 Pro, 15 Pro Max just came out. Should I upgrade? So
or in my case, switch.
Or switch, yep. So should you? And I guess that's what today's episode is all about. Should you take the plunge and update your phone to this year's model? And if you are, how do you do that? What are some techniques for managing the expense of getting a new phone? So that's what we're going to talk about today. And not everybody is like me that just drops $1,500 on a new phone each year. I mean, I trade in my phone most of the time. Sometimes my mother's always due for an upgrade, so I just give her a phone and pay for it. But, I'll trade in her old phone, so I handle that for her. But, not everybody is able to do that. So, you guys know how I manage my upgrades. So, Marty, what do you do when you decide that you're going to get a new phone? Do you just get it outright, or do you is there anything the way that you do it?
So the way I've been doing it the past few years is I go through the Apple program, and that is you go in, you pick out the phone you want, the new one typically, and you get charged every month, and you just pay for it over time. Now, the reason why I do this is a couple of reasons. One is I just don't think if I don't have to pay for it outright, then that makes it an easy way to just have a payment each month. I go through the Apple Store instead of the carrier because I don't want to get stuck and be locked in with the carrier for however many years. If I get mad or they do something, or maybe their service doesn't work and I want to change, I'm not locked into the carrier. So that's one reason. Another reason is you just get AppleCare and all of that warranty goodness through Apple. And the thing that makes that good compared to most of the carriers is that the carriers, you can pay for insurance, although it's very expensive. And it's always call one of these 800 numbers. They want you to mail your phone to them. And then in the meantime, you have no phone for a period of time, and you're paying way more money for that service that's not nearly as good, in my opinion, as like AppleCare would be. If I have a problem with my phone, I can either call or I can walk into an Apple store and let them know, hey, I'm having this problem. So they'll test it, and figure out what's wrong and either replace it, or if it needs to get sent in, I can get a loaner phone. However it goes, they're going to make sure I get taken care of and that I'm not down for any period of time, whether they give me a new phone and replace the one, or whether they give me a loaner phone and they get my phone fixed and I have at least a phone that I can use until my phone's fixed and back to me. So those are all really good things to think about. Also, you can upgrade every year. So let's say a year ago, the iPhone 14 came out. I got the iPhone 14 Pro last year. I am using that currently, but I'm going to trade it back. It's been 1 year. I can give it back and I can upgrade to whichever 15 I want to get. In this case, I'm going to get the 15 Pro Max. So if you decide to keep your phone for the whole 2 years, then it becomes totally yours and you can do whatever you want, which is what I did last time, actually. I just didn't need to update from, I think I had the 12, and I just didn't feel like updating from the 12 to the 13 was enough of a upgrade for me to change. My 12 was working great, and I didn't really see enough to make me update. So I actually kept it the whole 2 years, and I owned it outright by the time I got my 14, and ended up trading it in and gotten a bunch of cash for it. And I actually was able to get a new Apple Watch last year. So I got the new Apple Watch and the new iPhone 14 Pro last year. So that's what I do. I don't know what you do, Michael.
Well, like I said a minute ago, I just basically buy mine outright just so that I don't have to worry about it, and it I can just trade it in the next year and those kind of things. So, Alicia, what is your way that you upgrade or go between phones?
What I'm planning on doing is I haven't had this phone for very long. So I think what I'm going to do is pay this phone off, and then I'm probably going to go through my carrier. I'm going to go through my carrier, get the plan. We have the $0 down plan, but in Tennessee we have no income tax, so we have a sales tax for even $0 down stuff. So we just pay the sales tax, and then the rest of the phone will just be added to the bill. And then I'll probably just buy AppleCare online whenever I get the phone set up, so that I'll still have AppleCare and I don't have to go through my carrier to get insurance.
And the cool thing about that is you can buy your phone from anywhere, and you could still go to Apple and get AppleCare even if you didn't buy your phone from them. That's a great option. They have two options now. You can buy straight out 2 years for whatever the cost is. The cost varies depending on which phone you get or which device you get. But they also have one now where you can pay a small fee every month, and it just goes for as long as you have the phone. It doesn't run out, which actually is pretty cool. So if you're going to keep your phone for 5 years, it's worth having that AppleCare.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Which reminds me, I need to make sure the AppleCare from my previous phone is turned off.
Yeah.
I'll probably end up just buying a 2-year plan because it's honestly more expensive if you go monthly, especially if you don't realize how much. I mean, you could always buy the 2-year plan, and then closer to time when the 2 years goes up, you can just extend it.
Yeah,
and that's actually cheaper than paying monthly because the AppleCare is only like $80.
Depends on the phone, I think.
Well, $80 plus then.
Yeah. I thought it was a bit more than that, but I don't remember the exact amount. So
yeah, when I checked out the stuff online for the 15, I think it's like $80.
Okay, interesting.
And my iPad, it was like $80.
And it's really nice for headphones because it's $30 for headphones for AppleCare.
That's cool.
Yep.
It's kind of a no-brainer.
AppleCare definitely varies in price depending on the product and all that stuff, but it's worth having. I mean, it's definitely worth having, I think.
I think for Macs, it's like $200 to $300.
Yeah. You're going to pay more as you get up to more expensive.
Yeah, I think it's worth it though. And it's kind of one of those things that's like nice to have, and I'd rather have it, not need it, than need it, not have it.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%.
Right.
And I've had it, and there's
Mhm.
been times where I haven't used it at all. But when I have used it a couple of times, one time I had a laptop, and the laptop was having problems. And in this particular situation, I had sent it in a couple of times already, and I had gotten it back, and then I had more problems with it. And some of it was similar. They didn't actually fix the problems I was having with it, and other things started to happen. I had to send it back in again, and they just gave me a brand new computer. And at that time, the model that I had they weren't selling it anymore. So I actually ended up getting a new model. So I ended
Right.
up getting a brand new model, which was awesome. I mean, that was really killer.
So back to, we want to concentrate mostly on the phones this time, but the interesting thing about that, we have all three different ways of upgrading, right? So, and it's very interesting because I think most people out there, I mean, we talk about having, going to Apple stores and things like that. But I think a lot of people out there, I mean, me previously, I would just go through my carrier because, you could just find it, like with Verizon. I could just finance the phone. It was still an unlocked phone, but I would just be doing a installment plan through Verizon, as long as I had service and that kind of thing. But I think most people go that route because it is more affordable to do that. And um, I think that it's very much worth looking at your wants and needs and figuring out which one you want to do. For that, there's the Apple Card financing and all that, but that's one thing. But I think the important thing is, how often should you update your phone? You know,
But that's also if you have the Apple Card. If you don't have the Apple Card or don't want to get the Apple Card,
mhm.
then Apple Card financing is just not in the cards for you. Haha, in the cards. Hee hee.
Well, and Apple,
Anyways,
the carrier, you could actually finance it through your carrier. Like, Verizon doesn't even use the Apple Card; it just finances on your phone plan.
Right. And you just pay an extra fee depending on which phone you get and how much it costs. And they divide it over, I don't know, what is it, 24 months?
Mm-hmm.
right.
So, and that depends on if you trade in a phone, if you have a down payment, and all those things. So, talk to your carrier, and they sometimes do special offers and things like that. So, that's all important to think about. But again, how often should you update your phone? And I think it depends. I mean, I want to get y'all's perspectives on this, but I think it really depends on uh, what your needs are. Alicia, with Android, how often would you update your Android phone, and what was it that it would take for you to make the decision to update or get a new phone?
Um, I think probably around 2 or 3 years or so is probably about how long it usually took me to update my phone. And I think the the main factor that would cause me to upgrade my phone was probably lack of performance or lack of updates. I have had phones for so long before that they just didn't receive updates anymore. And I know that once they stop receiving updates, it can get kind of vulnerable with Android, where since it's not receiving updates anymore, it's more vulnerable, it's not as secure, and sometimes it can not be as accessible because apps that you are using are prepared for the new version and not exactly coded for the older version of Android anymore. So I have noticed also that by the time around 4 years, your phone starts to like degrade in performance a little bit. Not only because it's probably stopped updating, but also because tech just gets old. It just wear and tear, general wear and tear. Things happen. Um, as far as the battery goes, the battery doesn't last you as long. The things are just not loading as fast.
I would
Apps
say,
are slowly becoming uncompatible. So it's kind of one of those things where around 2, 3, 4 years, no longer than 4, I would end up upgrading my phone.
yeah, I would definitely say a couple things. One is if you're someone who wants to hold on to your device for a period of time, 3, 4 years, something like that, then when you purchase a device, maybe think about future proofing a little bit. And I say that in the way of as things become larger in space. For example, as these phones have bigger hard drives in them, then app developers and the operating system seems to get larger with that, takes up more hard drive space. So let's say that you want to kind of get a budget, you go for the iPhone SE because it gets you in the Apple ecosystem, but it's still affordable. Bump up the hard drive to 128 gigs and give yourself a little bit of time, longer than you would right out of the box. It's not that much more. I want to say, $50 to $100 on the average, depending on what phone you get. That would carry you a long way. Also, when you can't update your phone anymore in terms of the operating system, apps, will start slowing down, like Alicia was saying. But the big thing is the operating system. When you can't update the operating system anymore, the biggest issue you're going to start running into is you're not going to be at the best top level for the latest security updates and things like that. So you may have things that aren't as secure, or maybe things that are a little more vulnerable. So all those things are things to think about. Once you can't update anymore, that's when I would say is a good time to start thinking about looking at your next phone.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that as far as the vulnerability is concerned. That actually kind of scares me a little bit. The fact that they stopped focusing on security when it comes to those updates, because they're so focused on like the latest, newest thing that they've got to get out. But yeah, that is one of those, especially since I run my own small business. I'm kind of worried about like my personal records, clients' information, my information, getting out on the web. If I, fail to update or fail to, keep things secure, that, if I don't have the security updates, if I'm not getting those security updates anymore, and it so happens to be that update that causes personal information to leak out, or viruses to infect my devices and things like that. I don't know, that it's just that thought, that idea is not a good idea. I don't know, that image in my head isn't a good image.
Yeah, one thing I will say though is the previous operating system. So let's talk about last year. Last year was 16. They're still pushing out security updates to 15. You're not getting any new enhancements, but they're at least pushing out security updates to make sure that the previous operating system is stable, because not everyone can update to the new operating system if their device is old, maybe, or it doesn't have enough hard drive space, or maybe you just flat out don't want to update, which a lot of people do because they don't want to break something, which a lot of people have the fear of. If they update, they're going to break something. So they still continue to push out updates for security and things like that for a period of time. It won't be forever, but they do push out, security updates to the previous operating system for a period of time.
And I want to interrupt here and mention a few things. Android and iOS both do that. I think all the operating systems do. But something that's very interesting is Angie, regular IACAST host, sent me a message and let me know that the AppleCare Plus for the iPhone 15 Pro Max is $199. So
Oh.
I'm kind of glad I'm paying monthly instead of like paying another $200 on top of $1,500. So yeah.
Definitely.
I honestly wouldn't care. It's still worth the price because
Yeah.
you're. I think it's only so much more expensive because of the new camera system and things like that, and it's harder to replace the camera if it's broken.
Well, I think it's $199 for even the like whenever it was last year's model for the Pro Max. So I think it comes out to
Oh,
about
okay.
yeah. Yeah. Um those phones are not the AppleCare is not the cheapest. So
I wouldn't care. I still feel like it's worth it. I'd
yeah,
spend the
it
money.
is. I mean, AppleCare is worth it, but that's why I like the paying monthly on it because it lets you keep it as long as you want and I don't know if they let you renew after the 2 years for the iPhone
They do.
if you pay the 2 years. Not all of the
They
AppleCare
do.
plans let you do that. So
Yeah.
it it's
I
one
think
of
you
those
have to
things.
renew before it runs out.
Yeah.
I think you have to renew before it runs out.
Yeah.
But you do have the ability to renew usually.
Yeah, and like not all plans let you do it. So it's one of those things we just want to make sure, going
Don't
back
quote me
to
on that.
yeah. It's one of those things that, going back to security though, even the, and it's interesting because there are websites and things that can mess with your phone, and that's why they do these 0 days. Like we got an
One thing I
iPhone.
have to mention, I can't guarantee that Android does it because it's not really Android as a whole. It's Android is an operating system that is adapted to many different manufacturers' needs and many different manufacturers' goals. So it's up to the manufacturer to make sure that the devices are secure based on their firmware and their skin, their UI, their choices, and things like that. So you can't really guarantee that all of Android and all Android devices will receive security updates
All you
based
can
on.
guarantee is stock Android.
All you can guarantee is stock and
Mm-hmm.
maybe Samsung, because Samsung does release security updates even after the update is relevant.
But it still might be 6 months later.
It'll be quite the bit later because they're releasing monthly security patches
Mm-hmm.
for the newer updates, so it'll be quite a bit later. That's kind of what I've realized with Samsung is once you stop getting updates, you only get updates about once every 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah,
I think they've
and
shortened the span.
yeah.
But still, you can't really guarantee for every part of Android because there are so many different manufacturers that use
Mm-hmm.
Android and they use a different UI and they don't all use stock.
Yep. So with iOS, you're getting that same experience no matter what. So it's really important, and battery health comes into this too. How is your battery health? Can you get your battery replaced if it goes below 80%? I've never had a battery go below. I think 85 was my lowest, and so that it was still working fine. I've never had a problem, but I also don't keep my phones longer than 2 years.
Yeah. If you're going to just give it back and get a new phone, then that kind of solves that problem. You don't have to really worry about it only after a year or two.
I have worried about it. Depending on the phone, the battery can degrade faster or slower, and it also depends on the charging and how you use it, and a ton of other variables that cause the battery life to last longer or last for shorter.
Yeah.
So I've had different experiences for each one.
Yeah. And I think it just depends on what you're looking for, right? It depends on the type of person. Like if you want to be on cutting edge, then you want to upgrade every year. But I think that there are even people in the tech industry that don't update that often. I mean, when it comes to my Apple Watch, I may just stick out my Ultra for another year, right? I haven't made that decision yet. The only thing that would bring me over is the brighter screen, and this one's already pretty bright. So I don't know that it's really, I don't know that I'm going to update my Ultra this year. And, everybody knows me. I'm the one that updates every year on stuff. So it really is what is enough for you to make this the decision to, I'm going to update for this. The iPhone 14 Pro Max for me was always on display. That was the thing that told me I wanted this phone. This year it's USB-C. Who knows what it will be next year?
For me too, USB-C is a huge thing. Like I probably wouldn't update my phone. I have a 14 Pro now, and I probably wouldn't update it. It's a great phone. It's snappy and it does everything I needed to do and then some. But that USB-C really changes the game. I mean, it allows you to do so much more with your phone, external hard drives and plugging in hubs or other types of utilitarian things, or even a mic. If you want to run a mic, if you're a podcaster and all you want to bring is your phone and a mic, you can do that too. So, I mean, for me, it's USB-C all the way.
Yeah. And for me, it was, just having the ability to, and when we demoed this on the ICAST, you can go listen and hear how the iPhone sounds with a microphone, the same microphone I'm using now, hooked up with the iPhone without any voice isolation or any of that stuff on. And it sounds great. It sounds just like an iPad or a computer. So you're going to get a good experience with that iPhone, with the 15 Pro Max or the Pro. Even the 15 with USB-C is going to work, but it just depends on what you're wanting to do with it.
Right. Another thing, going back to the whole watch thing that you mentioned, I also don't feel like it's necessary to update your watch every year, because I feel like that's one of those things that go by the wayside, because it's kind of one of those luxury things where it's not necessarily a need, but more of a nice to have. So if you have a watch and you're not really feeling the upgrades and things that the latest watch provides, it's, I don't know, in my book, it's perfectly okay to just stick out that watch until either something happens to it or until the next watch upgrade.
And now, see, for me, I love the health features of the watch so much. That's the main reason why I use it. And so anytime they upgrade those, like when they added the pulse ox where you could do your blood oxygen level, that was a big update. I don't know that I got that version, but I got the one right after it. But, going always on display on the watch, that was big. And then now the 2 to 3 days of battery on the Ultra, that was a huge update for me. So those are the kind of milestones that I look forward whenever I upgrade my watch.
Yeah. I mean, the only other thing would be is if there's features you absolutely have to have. Now, this is a little interesting this year, particularly because the Apple Watch 9 isn't that much of an upgrade from the 8, really, and it kind of still carries the same, look and feel and design and all that. But there's 2 features that they put into it this year, and this could really, change for a lot of people, how they use their watch. And 2 of those features are, the first one is the double tap. And the second one is actually being able to use Siri on the device without having to have it call home. So what that means is you can give it Siri commands and it won't have to go out to the internet and come back every single time you ask Siri to do something, especially locally. So, for example, set a timer, set an alarm, turn on voiceover or off voiceover, stuff like that is local to the device itself. All watches previous to the 9 still have to call home. And they also don't get the double tap. So, I mean, if those are 2 features that are really, really important to you, you've got to update. So you got to think about if that's worth it to you or not.
Now, let me ask you guys this, since we're talking about watches, okay? I've always had the stainless steel or above watch, and I'll tell you why. I am clumsy, and I run into things all the time. And I usually do not buy the aluminum watches because I know if I bought that, it would be broken in an instant, whereas the Ultra and the stainless steel models of the watches will take a beating. So what, as people that are blind and low vision, what are y'all's views on which watches you guys update to, and why?
I get the same thing every time. I get the larger version. So depending on which model you have, it's the 40 something millimeter. Mine's the big one of the two. And I always get cellular. And I get cellular because there's a lot of times that I don't have my phone handy. Maybe it's in a backpack, or maybe I just want to leave my phone at home altogether. If you have cellular on your watch, and you don't need to have your phone with you, you can just go out. Usually I'll stick like my AirPods in my pocket. If I need to talk like on a phone call or something like that, I can stick a bud in my ear and just talk over, using my watch, and I can still hear and have a regular phone call. I stick with in terms of the material, just the base model, because I buy AppleCare for it. And if something's going to happen to it, I have the damage on it as well. So they're going to replace it or fix it or whatever the case may be. And for me, that's good enough. Otherwise, the jump up is a lot more. And if I'm trading my watch up every year, I'm kind of like, as long as I have AppleCare, I'm good to go.
And Alicia, I believe you have is it a Samsung watch?
Galaxy Watch 4.
So is
However, what
do they
I'm
have
gonna
different
do,
materials?
no, they don't. I think it's just either, I don't know if it's aluminum or stainless steel. I would have to look at it. But I'm probably gonna get the aluminum one, and the reason why I say that is because I might be clumsy, but I I've not really had instances where I've banged my watch into things, and there's always the option of buying a case. I'm not really worried about it because I'll probably end up buying a case to go over it or something, like to go over like the actual watch module itself, so that there will be some sort of raised lip over the screen, and there will be some sort of padding to go around the aluminum to make sure it doesn't scratch or dent. So I'm not necessarily worried about which material it is.
Right. And that's the other recommendation I would give. If you're going to get aluminum, make sure to put a case on it because of that reason. I like the stainless steel and the titanium on the Ultra because they do use a sapphire screen. I wish they would use sapphire on the front of the iPhones. That would make it amazing. So for durability.
I think the only reason why they don't use sapphire on the front of the iPhones is because it's uh more expensive.
It is. And it's harder
It's
to
more
produce panels of
expensive
that
and
size, I believe.
yeah, exactly. And even then, they don't really use full sapphire on the entire screen isn't sapphire. It's like a sapphire embedded
Well, it's
coating or
actually a
whatever
sapphire
usually.
crystal screen. That's why they don't make them that big, and it's not actually glass. It is a full sapphire crystal um, architecture. So it is a different screen type than glass, but it is not actually like fully sapphire. I think there's other elements they put in it, but there's no glass in there. So the hardness
Yeah, that's what
rating,
I was trying to say. You just happen to have it.
mhm,
You happen to say it
like
better.
the rating on scratching on a sapphire screen is much lower chance to happen on a sapphire screen compared to any kind of glass. Even ceramic shield from Apple is a much lower rating as the sapphire. So now there has been talk that they are working on a sapphire process, which, man, if they did that, I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
I
For
don't
the
think I
iPhone
would
screens.
because it's probably so much more expensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's getting the process down. It's kind of like them building the new chips in the new phones. So, but again, I think we're getting off on a bit of a tangent here with these devices. But I think really and truthfully, it needs to come down to what is important for you when you upgrade. What are you needing, and do you need to do that upgrade? Because there were some great things on this 15 Pro Max, but Marty, when you look at the 13 Pro Max to the 14 Pro Max, other than always on display, and say somebody's totally blind, what would have been the big reason to upgrade from the 13 Pro Max to the 14 Pro Max? From what I remember, other than always on display and obviously some camera stuff, it really wasn't that big of a change.
No, it was not. I mean, honestly, even going, from a 14 to the 15, it's a small change. I mean, there are small changes, but not huge change. I mean, if you aren't getting the Pro, you're getting USB-C basically, you're getting the dynamic island. Those are like the two major updates. Do you need USB-C and do you need the dynamic island? That's an individual preference. But other than that, they're not that much different, even from the 14 to the 15.
Well, see, I consider USB-C to be a big change. Like that's kind of the
Yeah, that's a big change. That's a
right. But if you need that, not everybody needs to run out and get a new phone just because it has USB-C. If you're someone who's trying to get some years out of your phone, or maybe you're don't have the money to be able to update, or whatever the case may be, still having a 14, if that's what you have, or even a 13, is still going to be a great device. So like for me, I have a lot of reasons to update to USB-C, but a lot of people, they don't care. All they want is for their phone to charge, and that's it. You know what I mean? They don't care about USB-C and all the things that it does.
Some people just use MagSafe anyway,
Exactly.
So it just depends on what you need. But I mean, as far as phones go, though, but the changes between the 14 and the 15 compared to 13, 14, and 12 to 13, USB-C is kind of one of those game-changing features that may put people over the edge, while some people, always on display, yeah, that's nice. I like it. That's why I upgraded. But, there's other smaller features, like the better satellites and the emergency SOS over satellite, that they're great if you need them, but it's not worth upgrading over, right? So I think it just depends on each person's needs and wants. And, I think the moral of the story, I think a 2-year upgrade period is really a good kind of middle point for most people. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
we've already been going for nearly an hour. I'm sure we can continue this for a while because we love all this Apple stuff. So we are going to probably go ahead and wrap this thing up pretty soon here. But do you guys have any final comments? And I'm really excited to have this show back. It's really, I think we're going to talk about some great topics on here.
I think it's definitely fun.
Yep, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a blast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll have other IACAST podcast hosts and team folks on here as well. So I'm very excited about that. And, it'll be us three and plus more. So we will have a lot of perspectives coming soon to the podcast. So I'm very excited about that. We are going to, I believe we decided we're going to do this weekly. Is that right, guys?
Yep.
So we're going to be back next week. We record on Wednesdays. New episodes will come out in the podcast feeds on Saturday. You will always be doing this live on the radio, so very exciting stuff. And I'm really excited. Do you guys have any comments you all want to make about the iCast and anything like that?
I'm just excited for all the things, we'll be talking about going across the gamut, whether it's computers and all the devices, iPhone, iPad, watch, all that fun stuff. And we'll have rotating guests and topics, and it's going to be fun. We got some cool stuff up the sleeve to bring to you guys. So stay tuned and
share with your friends.
Yep.
Share with your friends.
If you love the content, share with your friends.
Yep.
Don't forget to share with your friends. Spread the word to let other people know about our brilliant content.
Yes, exactly. So this is going to do it for this episode. We, on the IACast, we have picks and all those things. I think we need to come up with something really. Maybe what we do is we come up with an app, like our favorite apps of the week. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah,
Do you
that'd
guys
be cool.
think?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So we don't obviously have them this week, but we will next week. So stay tuned for that. So I'm pretty excited about that. There's so many cool apps.
I think I do.
Do you?
I have an app. Yes, absolutely.
We'll save it for next week.
Let's hear it.
Oh,
no, let's go and hear it. Let's go and do it.
All right. So if you guys are productivity freaks, I have fallen in love with this new app called Owaves. So basically what it is it's a day planner, especially if you're low vision. It's a day planner. It's like a drag and drop day planner. You place your activities around a clock, which is like the whole circle, which gives it the name Owaves. And it reminds you of like when your next activity or task is going to start, and basically is meant to keep the day cycle going, get the routine started. So if you're interested in a day planner that's really easy to use and really easy to really bright, really vibrant, kind of motivates you to use it, that one has been a game changer for me. There you go, my app of the week.
And not all of our apps may be fully accessible. As a warning here, do you know if that one does work with VoiceOver?
It does, but I don't think it's a drag and drop element. I think it's more of a click the activity and set up a time for it, kind of like you would in like Google Calendar or something.
Right. Okay. And how do you spell the name of the app?
Capital Owaves.
Fantastic. And I was trying to think if I had anything. There's so many different apps that I use. I cannot remember one right now, but at least we have one this week. We'll have more next week. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us for this this renewed, reimagined iCast episode.
Rebranded iCast.
Rebranded iCast.
Rebranded.
Yes. And I'm very excited about this. This will be in the feed. There is an iCast feed, which will be up and going again on Saturday. So do a search for that and you can subscribe. We'll have all of our episodes there. And they will also be in the IACast network feed as well. I may throw this in the main IACast feed as well so we could get people to know that it is going to be around. But just do some searching. You'll find this episode, and we're very excited to be back. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Marty and Alicia, for being here. Y'all have been great hosts, and we will do this again next week.
See ya.
Have a good one, everyone.
Yep.
Bye-bye.